What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and I'm gonna be continuing on the recipe app. In this video I'm gonna talk about ScreenFlow and wireframes. So I know that the app has already been designed and it's already been finished, but I want to do this because I feel there's an importance in understanding how all the screens come together, and understanding how all the all the designs fit together, together with the navigations and all the elements, and all the views and all the images. So this is gonna be like a rough explanation on how the screens all come together. So in other words, like the big picture of the app. So I'm just gonna do a sketch because I like writing or drawing things down on a piece of paper. That way I can be involved in the process and also see it clearly. So I'm going to be using a pen and a paper to do a rough sketch of the screens, and I'm not going to go into too much details, but what I want you guys to understand is I want to show you guys like the big picture of the whole app. So if you're building any app, if you see any design, it makes sense to take all the elements and put them together. Take all the screens and put them together. Like you would have a navigation, and you would have a tab bar, and then try and look at it like in a broader sense, like how everything all ties together. And that's what this video is all about. So this video is going to be about the I'll say wireframe. It's not really like wireframe, because wireframe is what you do before you get to the final product of the design. Like when the user, or when the person with the idea, like the customer or the client, meets the software developer or the software manager and the designer, and they all sit together and start exchanging ideas. So that's when they start doing the sketches and wireframes, right? And that's really what the wireframe is like. Wireframe is like putting together how the whole thing will flow. Have some car making noise. But yeah, wireframe is just like how the the idea of how the design would look at the end. So wireframe is I'm looking at a definition right here. So the wireframe is like a page schematic or a screen blueprint, a visual guide that represents the skeletal framework of a website, or in this case the app. So it's like a page schematic, like putting all the pages together. So this is before designing, but this wireframing I'm doing right now after the whole design is like putting all the whole screens together, together with the navigation, and seeing how everything just fits together, like the big picture. Alright, so enough of explaining. Let's go straight into the wireframe drawing. Alright, so these are the screens that we have for this recipe app. We have this one is the splash screen. So this one is like the stuff that first shows before the app launches, and these ones are the login screens that we've been working on and we've been building. So we know that this is going to have a navigation controller embedded in all of them, and all the other ones will have a navigation controller. Now this here shows that they're all going to be embedded in a tab bar controller, because this is a tab bar controller here. And we have the home screen, which is like the first screen the user would see, and we have the favorite screens, which is like the favorite recipes that are saved, and this is the recipe open. So this screen is like whatever recipe that is being clicked on will be shown here. Let me enlarge it a little bit. So if I click this recipe, for instance, this pasta salad, it will open this view controller here to show the details of the recipe. So for every recipe, they are all gonna use this recipe open view controller. So I'm gonna only build this once, and I'm gonna use it for all the other recipes. Okay, so this is the categories, and the categories is like, you know, collection of different recipes grouped together, right? So we have the appetizer, breakfast and brunch, dessert, and salad, soup, pasta, main dish, things like that, right? So if I click on one, it's gonna open it this way. Now there's a clear difference between this recipe open view controller and this category open view controller, because this one shows the detail of a single recipe. So for a single recipe, we're gonna have the name, the category, the time it takes, you know, and we're also gonna have the ingredients and the instructions. And then for a category, we're gonna have the recipes that are in that category. So for the breakfast and brunch, we can have a lot of recipes, and that's what this screen is showing. So now I wanna draw everything together so that I can have a big picture on how all the screens are gonna be joined together, right? So I know I'm gonna have these three, they're gonna be joined together, and then a button here, like if you create your account successfully, then you'll be taken to the home screen. You wouldn't have any favorite recipe if it's your first time until you start adding, you know, like we have here, like if you click on this pasta salad and you're liking it, and right here where we have this heart icon, you can just click it, and then it's gonna populate the favorite recipe table view controller. So I want to join everything together and see the big picture first, so that it can be easier for me to build and understand, you know, how many screens do I need to build? Do I need to build this recipe open 3 times? Do I need to make this 2 times? You know, how is this related to this screen? How is this categories related to the recipe open? You know, so that's what the wireframing that I want to do, you know, will define or explain. Okay, so this is the first screen. I actually didn't hit the record button, but you know, this is just the first screen, right? So after this first screen, we're gonna have the login or sign up screen. Now I'm not going to draw the login or sign up screen first, because the login or sign up screen, like we just went through, is like dependent on that navigation controller. So that custom controller that we created. So this is a navigation controller right here, right? This is a navigation controller here. Let me make this sharp. Focus. Alright. So this is a navigation controller here, right? And now just name it alright, and this navigation controller is gonna be the one responsible for this screens here. So the first screen is gonna depend on this navigation controller, as well as all other screens that, you know, come after them. So we know that this is the one where we have the login button and the sign up button, like that. So we have the login and we have the sign in, right? we have some label right here, but you know, I'm not just gonna bother about the details. All right, so from here we can navigate to here, right? But this one is not going to be shown, but this actually what's behind the scenes, so that when we click this login button, right, it's going to take us to the login view controller. So just bear with me, my shaky hands and the shaky camera. So this is the login view controller that has the you know, username and text field here, and the password text field, and also has the login button, right? And then there's some, like, you know, text here, forgot your password, whatever. So this navigation controller is the one controlling these two screens. So if we move from here to here, right, we're gonna have a back button right here that makes it easy to go back here, right? And then for the sign in, we're gonna have another, man, this is a little bit hard though. I'm gonna find a way to hold this camera. All right, so this is the sign in or the sign up, and then we have, you know, those text fields right there and the button right there. Okay, so we can see that you know, this navigation controller here, you know, controls the navigation for this, in fact, these three screens, right? Yeah. So next we're going to have a tab bar controller, and this tab bar controller is the one, let me show you guys. Remember, it's this tab bar right here. So that's a tab bar controller. So this is the tab bar controller here. So we have a tab bar controller like this, and this tab bar controller is gonna have three sections. So the first one, three or four, yeah, four sections. So the first one is the home. First one is the home. So that's the home icon right there. The second one is the favorite. So something like that. No, the second one is the categories. So where you have the knife and the stuff. So the third one is the favorites, like that. And the last one is the profile. So we have four screens, right? All right, so this is the tab bar. All right, tab bar. So now, so this tab bar is gonna hold those home screen, favorite, and the categories. But before those screens, before we put those screens in the tab bar, we're gonna, like, after we put those screens in the tab bar for this four sections, like after we put those four view controllers. So for instance, this home is gonna be a table view controller. This categories is gonna be a table view controller. This favorite is gonna be a table view controller, and then this profile can be like a view controller we customize ourselves. So once we start embedding those table view controller for each of these four items, we have to add navigation to them, right? So what am I saying, right? So let's say we have this, focus this guy. So let's say we have this home. Let's say we have it coming out right here, right? Now it's going to be a table view controller, remember, right? So before that, we're going to embed, like, let's say this is the table view controller. And this home table view controller, just like we have right here, has featured recipes and latest recipe. So you know, it has like a nav bar there, you know, it has something here, has a title here, it has a search icon right there. So you know, this place like this, right, it has something like this, which is like the ones that can scroll like that, the recipes that can scroll like that, the featured recipes. And the other ones are like that, you know, the latest recipes, right? And then we have the tab bar right here, showing that it is in the home. Okay, so just imagine we grabbed a table view controller and you know, we started building all these things. We're gonna embed it in a navigation controller like that. We're gonna have a navigation controller right here. Just right like that. And this navigation controller is going to be connected to this guy like this, right? And we're going to have that stuff. So this navigation controller is going to be responsible for the navigation for this home screen and all the recipes. So if we click on this, it's going to open a recipe. And then if we go back, it's gonna come back to this home table view controller or this home view controller. So in this tab bar where we have this home icon, we're first gonna add this home. We're gonna add this home table view controller first, so it's gonna be connected to this one. And then we're now going to embed a navigation controller. So this home is going to be like that. All right. So it's going to be like that. All right. So the next one we're going to have is the categories. So let me just do that quickly and do that for the other screens, and I'll show you guys what we have. All right, so this is like the big picture of everything joined together, you know, with the navigation. So let me just quickly explain what's really going on here. So and make this thing sharp and focused. All right, so this is the login and sign up, right? So from here we can go to the login and we can go back. Why? Because of this navigation controller right here. And we can go from this sign up button to this sign up view controller, right? And we can go back because of this navigation controller. So this navigation controller is responsible for the navigation for the three of these screens. So after the user logs in, like a valid user that already has an account logs in, or a new user creates an account successfully with no error, then we're going to go to the home. You're going to go to the home, and this home is going to be in this
tab bar controller. So this tab bar controller has all these bar button items right here, and each bar button item is responsible for, you know, the varying view controllers right there, right? So what I wanted to show in this, if this thing can focus well, all right. So what I wanted to show in this wireframe is the navigation controllers. Like, how many navigation controllers are we gonna need, and how many screens do we need to build? So for the for all the controllers in this tab bar, we're gonna need a navigation controller. Why? Because remember, for this login and sign up screen, we had this navigation controller, because if we wanted to go from one screen to another and back, right, we needed this. Like, if we went from this login button to this login screen, we needed a way to go back. And likewise, if we did from for the sign up, we also needed a way to go back, this back button here. And this navigation is the one in charge. So for instance, in the home view controller, we have two recipes. Like, we have some recipes here for the featured recipes. So if you click on a recipe, it's gonna open in this recipe open view controller. So we need a way to go back to the home where we started from initially. That's why we have this navigation controller right here. So this navigation controller is going to be embedded in this home table view controller, so that once we open any recipe like that, we can go back, so that this one will be removed from the stack and we can go back to where we came from. Now we need this tab bar so we can navigate between the categories and you know, the favorites and the profile. So that's why we need this tab bar. So for each of the view controllers, we're gonna have this navigation controllers. Why? Because when we go forward, we need a way to go backward, and that's why the navigation controllers are important, right? So for the categories, first have a navigation controller, then we're gonna use that, because if we open a category to this category open view controller, we need a way to go back. Like, let's say this one is breakfast, and let's say this one is soup right now. So if we click on breakfast, right, let me focus this thing. If we click on breakfast, it's gonna take us to the breakfast category and show us all the breakfast recipes. Now let's say there's a waffle for breakfast. Let's say this one is waffle, and click on this waffle recipe. It's gonna open it right here, this recipe open view controller. So if we want to go back to that breakfast, now we use this one to go back to this breakfast. And let's say we don't want to check the breakfast recipe again, we want to go back to another category, then we're going to click this one to go back here, so we can, you know, select another category. So what's making us do that navigation, like going from this one to here and this one to here? It's this guy, this navigation controller. So for every view controllers, because when we start creating the whole stuff, I don't want it to like I don't want it to be like, you know, confusing. So that's why I'm doing this wireframe. The key idea is all these navigation controllers right here that we have. So this is what we'll do first. We'll first grab a tab bar controller, and then we'll start adding let's say for table view controller for the home screen, and then we add a table view controller for the categories, and then we add a table view controller for the favorites, and let's say we add a view controller for the profile. We can do that later, you know, look for a profile design and just use that for our own app. But once we add all these view controllers, the one for the home, the category, and the favorites, we're going to embed. So there's not going to be any navigation controller. There's only going to be one straight arrow from the tab bar to the view controllers. So once we embed the navigation controller, then it's going to be in between, and it kind of looks like it's useless right now, but it will start making sense when we start navigating and putting everything together. And that's why we have all these navigation controllers right here. So for the recipe open, we only need one recipe open view controller. So what am I saying? If I click on a recipe, it opens and shows me the details of that recipe. So like the home, there's already recipes showing in the home view controller, the featured recipes and the latest recipes. So I can just click on any one and then it opens and the recipe open. So now if I go to like the categories and go all the way down, like from a breakfast to all the breakfast, and select the recipe for a single category, now I'm not going to create another recipe open view controller. This screen itself, it's this one here, right? So what I would do is just copy this screen and paste it here, and I'm just going to do the segue to this one, and I'm also going to only create one file, one Swift file for this recipe open, so that when I'm moving from this recipe right here, I'm going to reuse the same storyboard screen I did for the recipe open. So I don't have to create this recipe open again and again for the favorites. So I'm only going to have this one right here, and just going to copy this one and paste it right here and do the connection. And then for the favorites, I'm going to copy it, paste it, and then do the connection. So this is just a rough sketch of all the screens joined together. Now remember, later on, because right now what I'm looking at is like Firebase for authentication, and using Firebase for like offline storage. So when we have a user created, right, we're going to have the user will have a place where they can save their favorite recipes and stuff like that, in the cloud. But the authentication is to let people sign in to the app and have their data pulled from the cloud. So once a user is authenticated successfully, like from the login or from the create an account, then they're going to be taken directly to this home. So either you create an account or you log in successfully, then you'll be taken to this home. So this is like a rough sketch of the whole wireframe. Alright, so yeah, the reason why I'm doing this wireframe is because I want to see the big picture, on how everything sticks together, especially the navigation, this ones, because it was only until I drew everything out that I started to get the idea that okay, this navigation controller is really important, because it's responsible for all the screens that you are opening and you are adding to the stack. That's why we need this navigation controller, and that's why we need this tab bar. Alright guys, so I'm gonna move from here and start putting all the screens together and putting them in a different storyboard and adding all the screens. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and if you have, thanks for subscribing. Feel free to leave your comments and suggestions. I'll be glad to learn from everyone. Thanks for watching, and this is Chillaby.